tenant will cost you at least $15,000 and 6 months of your life. That's not an exaggeration. Eviction costs, lost rent, property damage, legal fees, it adds up fast. You're losing money if you're not screening correctly. Here's exactly how I screen every applicant, step by step, to avoid that financial nightmare. Before you ever advertise a vacancy, before you even think about showing a property, you must define your screening criteria. This isn't optional. It's your first line of defense against fair housing complaints and a roadmap for consistent, non-discriminatory decision-making. Your criteria needs to be written down and applied uniformly to every single applicant. This document is your legal shield. It clearly states your requirements for income, credit score, rental history, and criminal background. For instance, you might require a minimum credit score of 650, verifiable income at least 3 times the monthly rent, no evictions in the last 7 years, and no violent felony convictions. Without pre-defined written criteria, every decision you make is subjective, opening you up to accusations of discrimination. Imagine explaining to a judge why you approved one applicant with a 620 credit score but denied another with a 630. You need a consistent, objective standard. Remember, a fair housing violation in California starts at $16,000 for a first offense. That's a minimum. Now here's where it gets interesting. Your criteria must be reasonable and directly related to an applicant's ability to pay rent and abide by lease terms. You can't just make up rules. For example, requiring a credit score of 800 for a modest apartment in a middle-income neighborhood would likely be deemed discriminatory because it unfairly excludes a large segment of the population. Without a clear, objective business justification, the application form itself is a critical screening tool. But California law dictates what you can and cannot ask. You need a comprehensive application that gathers all necessary information for a thorough background check, but it must comply with fair housing laws. You can ask for their full legal name, current and previous addresses, contact information, employment history, income sources, and references. You can also ask about past evictions. What you absolutely cannot ask about are protected characteristics: race, color, religion, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, national origin, ancestry, familial status, disability, marital status, or source of income beyond verifying its existence and amount. But wait, there's a catch. California AB 2559 limits the application fee you can charge. It's tied to the Consumer Price Index and adjusts annually, so you must check the current maximum. As of late 2023, it was around $58. You can only charge what it actually costs you for the screening reports, and you must provide a copy of the reports to the applicant upon request. You cannot profit from application fees. If you charge $50 and your reports only cost $30, you're breaking the law. Keep receipts for all screening costs. I once saw a landlord get hit with a fine for charging a flat $75 fee for years, completely ignoring the CPI adjustments and the actual cost of reports. That's just throwing money away. This is where the rubber meets the road. You need comprehensive reports. A credit report reveals their payment history, debt load, and any bankruptcies. A strong credit score, generally 650 or above, indicates financial responsibility. A background check will flag criminal history, particularly violent crimes or those related to property damage. Income verification is crucial. Don't just take their word for it. Request pay stubs, W-2s, or tax returns. For self-employed individuals, bank statements and tax returns are essential. The standard rule of thumb is that an applicant's gross monthly income should be at least 3 times the monthly rent. If rent is $2,000, they need to show at least $6,000 in verifiable monthly income. Here's why the 3x income rule is critical. It's not about greed, it's about risk mitigation. A tenant paying more than a third of their income on rent is statistically more likely to struggle with payments, especially if an unexpected expense arises. I had a client who approved an applicant making 2.5 times the rent because they seemed nice. 3 months later, the tenant lost their job and the landlord was stuck with a non-paying resident for 6 months, losing over $12,000 in rent and legal fees. That's a direct consequence of not adhering to proven financial metrics. Apply your income criteria consistently. If you make exceptions, document the objective, non-discriminatory reason. Don't skip reference checks. They are often the most revealing part of the screening process. Call previous landlords, not just the current one. A current landlord might be eager to get rid of a problem tenant, so they'll give a glowing review. Previous landlords have nothing to lose and will often be more honest. Ask specific, open-ended questions. Did the tenant pay rent on time? Did they give proper notice? Did they maintain the property? Were there any complaints from neighbors? Would you rent to them again? Pay close attention to hesitation or evasiveness. This might sound simple, but many landlords get this wrong. They call the current landlord, get a good review, and stop there. That's a mistake that costs you money. I know a landlord who leased to a tenant based solely on a glowing current landlord reference. Turns out the current landlord was the applicant's cousin. The previous landlord, who was never contacted, would have revealed multiple late payments and property damage. That cost the landlord $8,000 in repairs and lost rent. Always verify the landlord's contact information independently. Don't just use what the applicant provides. Look up the property owner through public records and call that number. Once you've gathered all the information, compare each applicant against your predefined written screening criteria. This is where consistency matters most. If an applicant meets all your criteria, and you have no objective, non-discriminatory reasons to deny them, you must approve them. If you deny an applicant, you must have a legitimate, non-discriminatory reason directly tied to your published criteria. For example, applicant's credit score of 580 falls below our minimum 650 requirement. Here's the critical part. You must provide an adverse action notice to any applicant you deny based on information from a credit report or other third-party screening report. This notice informs them of the denial, the reason for it, and provides the contact information for the consumer reporting agency that supplied the report. This is a legal requirement under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, FCRA. Failing to provide this notice can lead to significant legal penalties. Never tell an applicant, "I just don't like the look of you," or "I got a bad feeling." Your reasons must be objective and defensible. Document everything, every application, every report, every conversation, and especially your reason for approval or denial. This meticulous record keeping is your ultimate protection in a dispute. Recap: to protect yourself and your investment in California, first, write your screening criteria before you advertise your property. It's your legal shield. Second, understand California AB 2559. Your application fee must be limited to the actual cost of screening, and it changes annually. Don't profit from it. Third, the 3x rent income rule is standard for a reason. Apply it consistently to mitigate financial risk. Fourth, always document your reason for denial. Adverse action notices are a legal requirement, not an option. Finally, remember that fair housing violations start at $16,000 for a first offense. Don't gamble with those odds. Powered by LeaseBase Intelligence.